Hello and welcome once again to Crazy Comics and Stories. It's me, your charming and delightful old Uncle Rat Bastard. And at the other end of the series of tubes and wires that we call the internets is Joe, Crazy Writer. How you doing today, Joe?
Oh, yeah, it's cold outside, baby. But don't worry.
Don't go outside.
I had to, and I'll get to it when we get to freaking. But I did talk to my buddy Turbo down in Florida. He said
I saw
last
that
week it was a mere 59 degrees, but it was back up to 79 today. He's suffering in silence.
Well, it is Florida, so pretty much everybody who lives there is suffering.
In one way or another.
Yeah. Meth gators and hogzillas.
Florida, man.
Well, it has been an incredibly busy week, Joe.
Busy. Work.
The office job has gone crazy. And somebody asked, one of the supervisors, has said, why do you think it's so crazy? And I said, well, if you take a look, you laid off all the temps that we hired for open enrollment, and we're getting the amount of calls we got during open enrollment. So we're doing open enrollment level of calls with half the people. I don't know, maybe next year, don't lay them off so soon. But no, they forget that every year.
Never going to get anywhere coming up with that idea.
I know. But here in the comics world, this is the quiet period.
Yeah.
Fewer books coming out. There are some shipment issues. So when you go to your local comic shop, if your pull list is a little light, this is a good time to look at their back issues, look at their bargain bins, and head over to the trade paperbacks and hardcovers and pick up that book that you've been wanting to for a while, because your shop needs the extra money.
And believe me, I'm working on that. Between the last 3 weeks, let's say I hit Steve Brown's shop, I hit the Source, I hit a half price, and I'll probably go out tomorrow and do it again.
But now, normally every month when we do previews, we talk about how we like to spotlight first issues, creative team changes, and I mostly buy my books now, hardcover, softcover, and read them on digital through subscription services and the like. But we still have love in our heart for the monthly comics.
Oh, yeah.
And even if the monthly comic we have moved over to the trade paperbacks for that monthly comic, we still love them. And we haven't done this in a while, so I thought this week we could go over what our regular pull list is. What are the books that we get that we don't spotlight in previews, and why we like them?
Which could be quick, because the key is, for some of the publishers, and I'll just pick on Dark Horse right away, they don't have regular series that I collect. I collect a lot of miniseries, and you can go back to the preview shows for that. I mean, let's flip open my list, because what I do is I'm an Luddite, where I actually have a notebook where I write down every month what I buy, and then as I'm looking, I'll flip back and forth to see, am I missing an issue, especially for people who don't publish monthly, where they go every other month, or they'll publish, I don't know, whenever they damn well feel like it. So like for Dark Horse, last preview show, we have Demons 3-issue miniseries. I'm also collecting Last Flight Out, which had issue 5 of 6 come out. Before that, let's see, Joy Operations, which may have been canceled because I haven't seen a new issue since November. Before that, Orville. Then there was Savage Hearts, which 5th issue came out last September. So Dark Horse for me is a lot of miniseries.
Yeah.
And I'm always looking to see what they have. The closest thing I probably buy regularly is the Neil Gaiman stuff. And then I buy it, like you said, in hardcover form, because a lot of times I'll find that stuff I want to reread over and over. Almost every publisher is like that for me. Boom, IDW, Dynamite to an extent. They're doing more. I don't really get into the Vampirella Red Sonja as much, so I don't buy a lot from there. So I thought we could just start with the big guys. Let's do Marvel, DC, and then we can branch off Image and work our way through if there's any regular series from the rest of the gang. How's that sound?
That sounds good.
So I've got my list right here. I'm not sure how much I want to get into what I like about them. I mean, there's series like we just talked about. Immortal X-Men's coming up. X-Men is kind of a weird one for me. I buy the regular X title. I did not branch off into a lot of the X books. I read every so often I'd pick up a weird variant cover like a Marauders or X-Force, and I did enjoy them. I just didn't want to read so many. I just kind of stuck with what Hickman did. And I'm curious to see where they go with Immortal X-Men, so I stick with that. I do get an occasional miniseries. We've talked about a few, like Wolverine Patch. Is there in the X family, Cory? What are the books you normally buy?
I am actually buying the trade paperback series that is reprinting the core X-Men books. And again, it's because there's so many of them, and they interweave. So when Hickman relaunched the X-Men with House of X and all that, I saw that they're doing these trade paperbacks that reprint between 5 and 8 comics. They've kind of settled on between 5 and 6, but in the beginning it would be, kind of this month or these 2 weeks and everything. So anything that's reprinted in those are ones I'm getting. And there are books that aren't being reprinted in those because they're more side books. And those I will decide at some point if I want more. But right now that they're up to, I think, Way of X. So I'm buying all my X-Men books that way. And boy, I wish Marvel did that with everything. The Spider-Man stuff that intertwines and all. Yeah. Just boom, put it out in these books rather than buying 4 or 5 comics. Buy one trade paperback. It fits better on a shelf in a box. I don't have to worry about, okay, I've read this. What's next? And if you get behind, that's the worst thing in comics right now. If you get behind on any of these interweaving books, they don't say, oh, the next book in the story is this. So with the X-Men, I'm buying it as the trade paperbacks. And you'll see there are a few comics that I'm buying as trade paperbacks. Not as a trade paperback series, I think is the best way to put it.
I think the only one I'm buying that way is Iron Man at the moment, because I didn't pick up initially. I thought about it, but I've been picking it up through the Korvac saga as Tony's been fighting it off, and they tend to come in like 5-6 issue chunks, so it's like I get maybe 2 books a year, as opposed to like when I started to read Thor that Jason Aaron did. There I picked up back and forth, and now I've read it. I think issue 5 should be, or I should say volume 5 should be coming out eventually. You mentioned Spider-Man. Spider-Man's probably one of the few books I actually will buy a monthly on. Every so often I decide I might drop it. I almost dropped it at the Ben Reilly thing, but I do like Pat Gleason's art, so I stuck with it. I'm glad I did. The last time I recall I dropped Spider-Man was, what that guy named Todd McFarlane was doing something with Venom. Yeah, that wasn't a good idea. And I was able to pick up
I think eventually. You may be the only person who, this Todd McFarlane stuff, I'm done.
The stories just weren't going anywhere. I think I stopped long before he was on the book. And it was just kind of a Drek mess. But Amazing Spider-Man also is dear to my heart because that was the first title I started me down the road that we're on now. said, why are you buying Amazing Spider-Man 179 after getting 178 as a gift? Well, so 30 years later, I can podcast with one of my best friends. I said it. I had it in an envelope sealed. I'll find it somewhere. It's around here somewhere. So Spider-Man,
it's
no
on
matter
Bunka
what.
Wagner's porch in a sealed mayonnaise jar.
It could be. And I left in the sun for a week. So Amazing Spider-Man's one I'll probably always try. Again, I almost dropped it, but I stuck with it, and now they're coming out with another number one. I always give things 6 issues to try. For example, the Immortal Hulk ended, and now we have Hulk. And I read the first 2 issues, and I'm intrigued. I've got issue 5 ordered. Issue 6 will be the deciding factor. If I really, really enjoy it, I will keep going. So Hulk and She-Hulk's on the list too, because it's starting up. It looked good. She's back to the way she was. So I can't tell you the number of variants I've been trying to hunt down, and signed variants too. So I'll be a bit embarrassed when those start arriving. Are you reading Hulk, Cory? Or are you
I want to go back a bit. I am still reading Amazing Spider-Man monthly. Well, actually weekly at this point. I also am reading Spider-Woman. I think they're doing a really good job with the character. It's a character I've always kind of liked, even though it hasn't been used well in the past. And I'm reading Miles Morales Spider-Man, which Salman, let me get that name. Saladin Ahmed is the writer, and I followed him over because he was so good on that Black Bolt miniseries, and I've really liked it. He did a Clone Saga that didn't suck. He's creating new villains, which most people aren't doing, and his new villains are really interesting, and one of them actually got picked up in the Iron Man annual. So those are the Spider-Man books I'm getting. I'm not buying Venom. Venom is something that if I hear it's good, I'll buy a trade paperback. When the Silk series starts, I'll be buying that because I really like Silk. It's one of the newer Spider-Man characters. The origin was a little silly, but it's a character I like, and they've kind of plopped her into, she's to the side of Spider-Man, but she works for J. Jonah Jameson, so we get to use those supporting characters who are characters that I enjoy. Silk is a book that I will be getting. Hulk is one that I am reading Immortal Hulk now.
Yeah, I got to get all my issues together.
And it is a trade paperback, so I'm going to pick up the first trade paperback. You've said the new creative team is good. I'm hearing good things about it, so I'll pick up the first trade paperback and go from there. One other book I'm getting as a series, Moon Knight. And now everybody's like, oh my God, I love Moon Knight so much. I've always kind of liked Moon Knight. To the point where if I lose about 30 pounds, I'm going to be cosplaying as the Warren Ellis Moon Knight.
See, Moon Knight was one that I dropped just recently. It got to that 6th issue, and I was like, you know what? I might just do it in trades, because I'm wondering if there are just some books that are better just to read in chunks.
Yeah.
And my problem is if you got to wait every 6 months to get a decent chunk, I have no idea where, like, I couldn't tell you for $50,000 where my Moon Knight #1 was that I bought. Plus I can turn around and I can sell those 6 on the eBays and then just continue on trades. Or if I'm going to play long term, I might just wait for an omnibus. So there's always that. I don't buy any other Spider-Man ones. I guess there's a transition going now. I love Doctor Strange. It is one of those books that I picked up in a paperback format way back when, exposing me to Ditko's art. And the storyline were so compelling. I remember back then, Doctor Strange was on his own. He was being hunted down by Fathoms of, at the moment, we didn't realize who the dreaded Dormammu was. And it was just amazing. Even in those small paperback books, and we're talking late 70s, early 80s, it was still there. I mean, I was in love with Clea. I want to know who she was. And then, of course, when his run ended and then they ran another run in one of the paperbacks, I was like, okay, this is cool, but what the frig happened to Ditko? I didn't know, again, that this was Golden Age stuff. I mean, I know I was reading stuff from the 60s, but I didn't realize what had happened. So all throughout, I've always tried to pick up Doctor Strange. It's probably one of those I will translate. I've got the Ditko run as an omnibus, but I'll probably pick up omnibuses or epic collections. Although I do have a lot of them in comic book format. And again, I want to read them, but it's a pain in the butt for us old people to just, okay, I'm going to bring out long box of Doctor Strange comics to work, and this is what I'm going to read in my slow time. So the Death of Strange is something I'm picking up, and of course we talked about it in the last preview. Strange #1, really interested to see where they go with this. And again, yeah, I know Doc's coming back, no big deal. I'm waiting for the woke crowd to be upset. Oh no, they turned Doctor Strange into a woman. Yeah, did they get married?
They were married and then divorced, and then Doctor Strange wiped her memory of them being together, and then the spell went away when he died, and she was pissed at the yeah, it's okay.
Yeah.
Have I explained it too much? Yes, I have.
Well, in comic books, no, that makes sense. So how are you on the whole strange stuff?
I'm waiting on the book for the Death of Doctor Strange. I will be picking it up. I've read actually the first issue in Marvel Unlimited and liked it. Another book that I pick up in trade paperback as a series, Fantastic Four by Dan Slott. Alex Ross put in a pitch for the Fantastic Four, and he was asked why it was turned down. They said, well, their #1 writer has dibs on that book, so he's the one who got it. Well, their #1 writer is Dan Slott, and I agree that his run on the Fantastic Four has been really good. He understands the characters, he understands the family dynamic, he understands the Marvel Universe. Love Alex Ross's art, but his stories tend to they tend to lose focus. Like his Kirbyverse stuff over at Boom, or the public domain characters he did at Dynamite. They had a great start. Yeah, they had a great start and then just kind of faded, and story ended up going nowhere. His Universe X stuff I liked, but he had a co-writer on that. So I think Marvel might have made the right choice. You know, Alex Ross, great artist, needs a co-writer. And really, that's it for the Marvel series that I purchased. I read a lot of stuff.
Oh yeah. I get Fantastic Four as well. I get it. Eternals I've been liking. Thor I've been liking. Strange Academy, again, this Doctor Strange tie-in. I stopped buying the Marvels, because I'm going to pick that up in book form.
That's not working for me as a regular comic.
And I'm going to try it you talked about the Punisher coming up. I'm going to give Punisher a try as well. You know, give it that 6-issue run, see what happens. The one that I quit just recently, Avengers. I read issue number 50, and I'm checking out. I will probably come back in trade format, but this is one of those that the storylines have either hit me or they've just kind of and you know, again, I believe Dan Slott's writing it, so
no, it's Jason Aaron.
Jason Aaron.
Avengers.
Oh, okay. And again, I regret not sticking with Jason Aaron for Thor, but I'm really, really digging Jason Aaron reading it via graphic novels. So I have no doubt in the future I'll be picking these up as graphic novels. So, and that's pretty much it. You know, everything else is miniseries, the Maestro. You know, and you talk about creators. If I see Kurt Busiek writing something, Mark Waid, Peter David, I'm on it because I really like what they do, and they tend to right now be writing miniseries, and I'm fine with that. So, shall we move over to DC?
Well, I want to make one more point about Marvel. I do read I would say most of their output because I have Marvel Unlimited. So even if I'm not buying a book, hey, it's on Marvel Unlimited. If I've got time, sure, I'll read 6-7 issues of Jason Aaron's Avengers and enjoy it. I'll read the Star Wars stuff. The Star Wars stuff, if it's good, I'll buy it, because one of the things they do with the Star Wars stuff is they put out these omnibuses because it's Star Wars. So just because I'm not mentioning it here doesn't mean I don't read and enjoy it, because Marvel Unlimited is an unlimited buffet. Everything they publish, and even stuff they don't publish, these new Marvel, I don't even remember what they're called, but they're digital only. They're done in a different way. They're usually short stories. Those are fun too. I don't think they'll ever be printed as books, but they're fun too. So I'm reading the majority of Marvel's output. Let's head over to DC.
All right. DC's pretty short for me. Okay, that's it. Well, to be fair, I'm going to give World's Finest a try. But most of the things I buy, I don't buy a lot of DC. I buy a lot of miniseries through DCs. I buy a lot of books. Case in point, the Batman versus Bigsby talked about in last previews. I pick up just trying to see what kind of new stuff. Most of the stuff I tend to pick up through DC graphic novels is old. I have been reading Justice League, but like Avengers, it's just not doing it for me. And I do like Bendis's stuff. Generally, anytime he's writing something, I will jump on board. But yeah, this is not doing it for me, whatever he's trying to do in the Justice League. So, and again, it's happened before. Whoever started Justice League, I was on board. It kind of fell off. They tried to do the Dark Metal. They lost me. So DC, I kind of have a love-hate affair with right now. And like I said, I'm buying a lot of miniseries. You know, Refrigerator Heads, Batman Scooby-Doo, which just finished, Blue and Gold, Nice House on the Lake. And I'm giving World's Finest, again, it's under Batman, Superman World's Finest. So when I went to go find it, I couldn't find it in the W's. But I don't buy a lot of series. How about for you, Mr. Strode?
I am buying 2 series, and everything else I read on their app. I know that's so weird. One of the series I'm buying, because it's not on the app, Mad Magazine. Them going all reprint, I started picking it up when Bill Morrison was brought in as editor with issue 1. Because Bill Morrison was the guy who did the Simpsons comics for over a decade. And I absolutely loved his work on The Simpsons. I think he's a hilarious cartoonist. I thought his issues of Mad were fresh and interesting, but obviously they didn't sell well enough. So now Mad is all reprint, which is kind of what I said they should do. So they're picking out the best of the best. I like that. Yes, I have the complete Mad on DVD, which goes up to, I think, issue 500. But hey, it's a fun magazine, reprinting the old stuff that I enjoyed when I was a kid or a teenager, or maybe some of the stuff that I missed when I hit my 20s. They're not really doing much from the 90s. It's all really the classic stuff from the 60s, 70s, and 80s. So, and the other book I'm getting, because I love anthologies, is the Batman Anthology series. What is the name of that again? Let me see here. I have to scroll and look. Batman Urban Legends. It's a monthly 64-page anthology book. Usually the main story is by Chip Zdarsky, although it looks like he has finished his 12 issues. I like anthologies. They're using more characters than just Batman. We're getting some obscure characters. We're getting characters that you don't see much, and they're anchoring it with Batman because Batman sells. The rest I am just reading on the app, and I will read it in bursts. Like I will read the burst of the Batman by Williamson. They just finished the Fear State story, and that's showing up on the app now, so I'm reading that. The Tom King stuff I bought as as hardcovers until they quit putting out the hardcovers. And now when he does a 12-issue series at DC, I'll pick up the collected hardcover. But really, I hate to say this, I was a huge DC fan to the point where there were times where I thought DC was just knocking it out of the park over Marvel. And I'm a Marvel, was started as a Marvel zombie. But for DC, loved their universe, loved how they took care of it, bought tons of stuff. And then with the New 52, when they said, nope, we're wiping it all clean. There were a few interesting series, but for the most part, the art lost me because it was all, let's draw like 90s Marvel. Well, 90s Marvel sucked. The stories were edgy to be edgy. We're going to end Batman #1 with him fucking Catwoman on the top of a building. And
That's funny. That's the second time today I've had somebody talk to me about that.
And it just drove me away. It's like, okay, if you don't care enough, you don't care about me as a reader, I'll come in when good creators come in. And the thing is, they're, because of their budget thing, they are doing a lot of creators who are new, who are unknown, who are from outside the US. And I get that. But I follow creators, so I'm not going to know who this guy, this Italian artist you've grabbed is until he's been around for a while and made a name for himself and I recognize him. So I'll go back and I'll buy the trade paperback if you make the trade paperback available, which more and more they are not, which I will never understand.
Money in the bank. Money on the table.
But when I open my tablet, 5 times out of 6, I'm going to Marvel Unlimited. The other time I will go to DC. And oddly enough, lately I've been going to, oh, look, they have Weird Mysteries. Oh, look, they have House of Mystery. They have House of Secrets. They have the 70s horror anthologies. I'll read those.
And I buy a lot of other Marvel things, I should say DC things. I mean, I bought the Phantom Stranger Omnibus. I bought the New God stuff, not only Kirby, but Mark Evanier. I bought New Teen Titans, the whole run. Just looking back again, see what other goodies. So
but think about the fact that you're buying the old stuff.
Yeah, I mean, that's the stuff that I want.
And they're not grabbing me as a new reader. They're not grabbing me as a reader for the new stuff.
Yeah, not as much. Onward to Image?
Sure. I have quite a few books in Image, but I'm only going to talk about the ones that are currently coming out.
Yeah, I got that same problem. I could give you a list of things I'm waiting for. The #1 book that I always buy no matter what, it hasn't been solicited since October of last year, is, of course, Savage Dragon, because I love Eric Larson's stuff. I will stick with him as long as he publishes it. I don't know what he's doing now. He's obviously got some projects going on, or he's just playing catch up. But that, to me, is always the #1. Again, Image, a lot of what Image has for me are miniseries. There are things that I have bought originally, like Die, Undiscovered Country, that I've stopped buying the comics and decided
Die has
to go.
Concluded.
Yeah, I'm just going to pick it up in graphic novels. And when we talk a little bit about geeking, you'll understand why. Sometimes there's things, well, I guess that's a freaking, I don't want to go there. I was picking up Gunslinger Spawn. It's not really grabbing me, so I'll probably just close it at 6 and sell it off. But for me, the only other thing that's got my attention right now is Astro City, which I bought the #1 because Eric Larson did the cover with Savage Dragon, which I thought was funny. It was that or the one that, I can't think of the artist from Chew. He did one cover on Astro City that just I thought was hilarious. But some of the ones, Adventuremen, Crossover, I'm always looking to see what they got, as you can tell, because we're always talking about it. But and then there's a few, like Hellcop just hit issue 4. I don't know if it's over or if it's just waiting to come back for another season. Honorable mention goes to Saga because I've never read it. So I'm just waiting to put it all together in some form or another, and I will read it. Anything? What do you got image-wise?
Stillwater. Stillwater hooked me hard, and I cannot wait. I cannot wait for trades. When it's all done, however, I will sell off the regular issues and buy the complete book, because this is something I'm gonna read more than once. But right now I can't wait. I have to pick up the new issues as they come out. I do talk about the Reckless books that I get. Ice Cream Man. I picked up some trade paperbacks and then went, I need to read this. Each issue is a self-contained horror story. I don't know if they're going to connect or not. It's so weird. I enjoy it, but it's so weird. It's so odd. Monstrous is a book I enjoy. It's still coming out from time to time.
Yeah, again, another book that I picked up just in graphic novel.
Adventure Man. I love Terry Dodson's art, and I love Matt Fraction's writing, and I love the fact that they're doing what if a pulp character were around today. Kind of a throwback in a lot of ways. A throwback to older superhero type adventures. It doesn't have a lot of angst. It's a really fun book, and I need more fun. Inkblot number 17. I think I even turned Joe onto Inkblot, which is the story of a cat that travels in time and space. But
he's
isn't
just a
smart.
Cat.
It's just a cat.
Just
so
a cat.
It just shows up wherever. And I love that so much. Flipping through here to make sure I don't miss anything. Saga, now that it's back, that's another book that I can't wait for next issues. And I'm really sad that I waited so long to get started on it.
I know, I'm going to be complaining about that too. But I have decided to pick it up in the individual comics because my daughter gave me, like, how many are there now? 9, I think, up to, and she gave me like 7 of them. And I have I have the first one, so I just got to figure out which ones I'm missing, and I'll get caught up as fast as I can.
But that's it for Image, unless some of the books that they have not published in a long time start coming out.
Copperhead.
Because that I'm not reading.
Oh, it's good, but it ends on a cliffhanger, and there's no sign if it'll ever start again.
That's another problem I have with Image. Like you talked about Savage Dragon, they're creator-owned, and there are times, like with Saga, we're going to take a few months off, and it turned out being 3 years. Or, there are other books, because they're creator-owned, because they're not, they're never going to have a fill-in issue or anything. You are pretty much in for the long haul. And one thing I like about Image is that they'll have series like Chew or Criminal or stuff that are long-form series that, okay, this is going to be 60 issues. This is going to be, 40 issues. This is going to be, 75. I like that. It gives them time to tell stories. And if we were to go back, I could point to other books like that, but they're over now. So those are the ones that I'm getting now. Now, there aren't a whole lot in the rest of the books that are out there, but there are a number of things that I buy every month in the rest of previews.
Oh, yeah. I'm going to jump all the way to the end. Tomorrow, back issue. Absolutely love back issue. I do look at Alter Ego occasionally if it's got a topic I'm interested in, and sometimes it's fun to read just because it's like things I never know. But back issue, I absolutely love because it reminds me of books that I grew up reading, and I get a desire to want to reread them. So then I'll try to run about and figure out how I'm going to do that. Will I pick up the original issues? Will I find reprints? Or in the case of sometimes they just did a couple where they did Bronze Age TV tie-ins, and then they did another one, the one that got ripped off for my car, number 124, where they did cartoon Bronze Age TV tie-ins. Never going to be reprinted, but I'll go look for them, and especially if I think they're kind of fun. I know you're big on both these issues anyway.
Well, I'm big on Tomorrow's.
Oh yeah.
I don't buy everything they do because I'm not. I tried the Retro Fan magazine, and it's very surfacey in that. Okay, we're going to do an issue on $6 Million Man, and the stories end up being, wasn't the $6 Million Man cool? Without getting into a lot of detail. And for me, a lot of the stuff they cover is stuff I kind of already know about. So you're doing a real surface thing like, hey, there used to be this show called Shazam, and here's who was in it, and here's what it was about, rather than how did it get on TV? Why did they make the changes from the comics? Stuff like that. They don't really dig in. It's a lot like that skit on Saturday Night Live when Paul McCartney was on, and who was it interviewing him?
Chris Farley.
Chris Farley. Yeah, you remember when you did Abbey Road? That
was cool.
And that's how Retro Fan feels. I understand the market for that. Back issue is very much Bronze Age comics. And Bronze Age has changed because when they started, they were mostly 70s. And now they're 70s and 80s with a little bit of 90s sneaking in. Alter Ego is Golden Age with some Silver Age mixed in. And it like you talk about, you pick it up when you're interested. I will read it even if I'm not all that interested because it will make me interested. This month's issue is about Alfredo Alcala, who I know little about. But as I'm reading it, it's like, oh, wow, this guy's really interesting. He had a really cool career. The way he came to the U.S. was amazing. There's Jack Kirby Collector, which was their first book and my favorite. There's Comic Book Creator, which is the same editor who created Comic Book Artist. And it's a weird one because it usually focuses on an artist, but it tries also to have some modern news and short interviews with people working in comics now. And I like the long interviews they have with artists and the long articles they have about artists. But like with all Tomorrow's stuff, it's so far behind that, what was it, the Terry Dodson issue? Well, I've got this book coming out called Adventure Man. Well, the book's been out for over a year. So you've had the interview in the can for a year. The stuff about his getting into art and his early work, cool. Anything about modern stuff, no, you're a year behind. It's not going to work. And that's it for their magazines, really. We get into their books every time there's a new one. I pick up Cerebus in Hell. Dave Sims' post-Cerebus book. It's weird. I like Dave Sims' art. His humor in this veers from, okay, that's really funny, to, yeah, Dave's been living on his own way too long, and he's not right in the head. Kind of like when you read Cerebus, you get up to a certain point and you go, Dave's not right in the head, is he?
This ain't right.
Yeah. What other books, what other regular comics that come out are you into?
The only one that I buy is Knights of the Dinner Table from Kenzer.
Yep, that's one for me too.
I've loved this book. It works on so many levels. The art is not what you would call
good.
Well, it works for what it is. It's not high art. It never will be. But you got stories.
It's clip art. It's very clear that years ago he drew these characters and he drew like a few poses for them. But because most of the stories are people sitting around a table, he just, okay, here. The art is just there to move the story along. Jolly
story's
Blackburn
on
is a
3
great
levels.
guy and a great writer. His art is functional at best. He's been doing it for 20-some years, and his art's exactly the same.
So you know he's doing something right.
Well,
But
and you
the
also
story
know that he's not drawing anymore.
works on 3 levels. It's, first of all, like you said, guys are sitting around playing a game. The inner dynamic from the friends. Then you've got the storyline of their characters, which itself can get pretty damn compelling, especially after they've done a long jaunt, whether they're playing Hackmaster or Space Hack or doing the criminal hack. There are other characters around and they have their own tables going. I think my favorite is Crutch. He's basically a crook. He's paroled and he's got, he met Bob, one of the regular knights, and Bob
got him hooked on gaming
by having him describe a job that was being done. And Bob thought it was a game they were doing. And he basically lined up an entire robbery for these guys to do, thinking they were just playing like Crime Hack or something, not realizing that these guys are doing it for real. And I think that's when Crutch pulled Bob out. And when Crutch finally did step up and become a DM, oh, he's a total player kill person. Toughest SOB you've ever seen. You've got the Black Hands, another group. You've got, was it Weird Pete's his name?
Yep, Weird
He's
Pete.
the guy running the store. Just an old school conniver trying to move merchandise the best way he can.
Very much an 80s game store, and it reminds me a lot of 80s comic shops in that they're kind of a business, but mostly just they're kind of just on the level, barely at the level of being a legitimate business.
Yeah, he plays as much as he sells, you know. So, and then you've got, of course, what do they call it? Hard 8, where the guys who create the games are, and they have for every so often Gary Con, where everybody gets together to the big yearly convention. It's just a lot of fun. The strips go back. They're all online. They're digitally available. I have, I believe, almost every issue except issue 4, which is a lot. Now, somewhere along the line, it went from just being a comic book, a little sidebar. I actually had issue 1, 2, and 4 at one time. I found them in a quarter box at Greg Ketter's Dreamhaven store back when it was a little room above the drugstore that used to be there. I don't know if the drugstore is still there or not. And I picked them up. I loved them. I didn't catch another Knights of the Dinner Table until about issue 26, and I've been buying it ever since. As the magazine continued, they have added more stuff on gaming. So 90% of the issue for me is gaming stuff, which is fun to read. I don't game anymore, but if I did, I'd be adding the stuff they talk about. They have one like where it's just traps, and the hapless guy comes in and sets off the trap, and he's unescapable. They have columns where they take movies, and they used to have one on comic books, and describe how you can convert that over to Hackmaster. And then there's one-shot cartoons. There's even cartoons that readers can send in. I've even had a couple times where I've sent in little bits for like Tales of the Table, where they're talking about your adventures playing D&D. And so it's just one of those books that even if for some reason you know what, I'm not buying any new comics, I'm going the Gruber route, this would be one of the few comics I would continue to read. Because it's just, I love the characters. They're like hanging out with friends. I look forward to the monthly meetings. And best part is I can go back and I can reread the stuff because, again, I've forgotten so much of it because I'm so busy with the current things. And I recommend it if you like it for the cartoons, or the comic, fine. If you're a gamer, you should definitely be reading this magazine because you probably see yourself in it.
Well, Joe, I'm about to ask and see how deep you got into gaming. because you mentioned traps. Do you remember a series of books called Grimtooth's Traps?
I do not.
There was a company. There were in the 80s. There were a lot of companies that would publish kind of unofficial D&D stuff, and we were, we played a lot of D&D in the early to mid 80s, and we would. This was back when TSR, they would put out a module, and it would be, okay, here's a dungeon, and here's how to get everybody in, and here's a map and all that. And we went through the ones we could get. And then they put out these special ones, which were used at conventions for competitive role playing, which were basically places filled with traps, and you had to figure out the traps. Well, then there was a book. They put out modules that weren't approved by D&D, many of which were ones that had been used at a convention. And one of the companies was called Flying Buffalo, and they put out a book called Grimtooth's Traps. And they put out, I don't know, 5 or 6 of them. And, well, let's see. I found it here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. They put out 7 of them, and all it was traps you could put in your dungeon. And they would have so many skulls for how lethal it was. 1 was it's not going to kill anybody. 5, no way anybody can live. And when I bought the first one, like most young dungeon masters, was like, I need to use all of these. But after, having a few in a dungeon, you realize that your characters are going to get pissed if they're getting injured and stuff all the time, and you want the game to be fun. So I would space them out. But whenever I read that in Knights of the Dinner Table, it reminds me of Grimtooth's Traps, except Grimtooth's Traps were written as if this troll named Grimtooth who's selling you traps to kill those pesky adventurers. So it reads like a sales brochure. Oh my gosh, it was so much fun. To the point where even after I quit, when I moved up here, I didn't have a gaming group for years and years and years till I met Dan. But I still, when I worked at Shinder's, a new Grimtooth Traps book, gotta buy it. But Cory, you don't game, don't care. These are fun to read. Another comic that I pick up, there are 2 magazines coming out from a publisher called Warrant Publishing. I've talked about them before. They're called Warrant because they're basically in love with Warren magazines. They have 2 of them, Shudder and Vampiress. And they are black and white magazines, 64 pages. No, I'm sorry, they've dropped down to 52 pages. And they are black and white horror stories. The art is amateurish. The stories are actually fairly good. They try to get people who used to work at Warren. The editor also writes stories when he doesn't have enough from contributors, it looks like, or he just thinks that he should be writing them. The stories are okay. The art is mediocre, but I like horror anthologies and I want to support this sort of thing. And the covers they have are amazing. They have Frazetta covers. They have Sanjero covers. They've got painted covers. I think I pointed it out to you. They had Richard Corbin's last cover on their latest issue of Vampiress magazine. I love them. Now, what was it? Drag Cartoons came back. I picked it up at the grocery store because I was so shocked to see it. But I eventually just gave it up because not enough nostalgia. And oh my God, the art in that is terrible. Just very amateur art. And it amazes me. There's so many great artists out there and they can't seem to find any of them. When it comes to manga, if it's by Rumiko Takahashi, I'm buying it. Maison Ikoku, Usuri, I can't pronounce it, but it used to be called Lum. When they get 1 Pound Gospel, I'll be picking that up. Anything by Takahashi. I love Takahashi's stuff. Ranma 1/2 was another one that she did. She basically sets up these situations and has weird characters in kind of a science fiction fantasy sitcom, and it goes for a while. Maison Ikoku is much more down to earth. It's a younger woman's husband has died, so she inherits his apartment building, which is full of wacky people. And it becomes this romantic comedy where everything's about misunderstandings and will they or won't they. And I can't believe she stretches it out as long as she did. Years they stretched it out. And a lot of it is because you've got all of the wacky characters in the apartments to make it more interesting. And back when I was asked to write a comic strip for someone, I took that idea of an apartment building with a bunch of wacky characters in it. Of course, I did completely different characters and a completely different setup. But it was more, how can I get a bunch of interesting characters all in one place, even though they have nothing to do with each other? I wrote myself into it as a monkey. Because monkeys are funny.
Yes.
You know what's not funny, Joe?
What?
The attacks that you could be getting on the internet. People could be stealing your information. You need to protect yourself, and our sponsor, NordVPN, will tell you how. Our newest sponsor is NordVPN. Let's be honest, if you're out on the internet, you need a VPN to protect you. There's all sorts of things going on the internet where people can track you. You could accidentally download a keylogger, all sorts of things. NordVPN gives the best security possible. It has a password manager which generates complex passwords, syncs across all your devices, stores your notes and credit card information. It also gives you 10 gigabytes of private cloud storage, secure files. It backs up your data automatically. But the main thing it gives you is peace of mind. It gives you peace of mind when you're out on the internet, when you're streaming, when you're playing games, when you're listening to podcasts like this one. It gives you safety anywhere at any time. It protects your online activity. You get full access to all content. And if you use the link go.nordvpn.net sh3ku, it'll take you to where you can get a great deal for a 1-month plan, a 2-year plan, a 1-year plan. They are our newest sponsor. We're happy to have them. And if you would like to sponsor something here at any of the podcasts on the Solitaire Rose Network, you can. Just email me, solitairerosenetwork@gmail.com. Thanks. And hopefully my other podcasts are funny, like these. The Solitaire Rose Radio Network is currently on a pause, basically because COVID-19 has made it so that I have to work a lot of extra hours at both jobs. But you can still go and listen to my other podcasts. Now, you're probably listening to Crazy Comics and Stories, which is the main podcast. But on this same feed, KRAYZCOMIX, is Solitaire Rose Radio, the solo radio podcasts that I do. I've done interviews, I've done short stories, I've done all sorts of things, and you can get to it right here on this same feed. I also do a podcast called Novelcast, where I take the novels I've written and turn them into free audiobooks. That's over at novels.solitairerose.com. Dangerous Dan Moore and I, and of course Wolfie B. Bad, give you bad advice over at badadvice.solitairerose.com. You send in your questions and we give you the aforementioned bad advice. And then myself and Adam Vermillion from For the Love of Comics do the Fantastic Forecast at fantasticforecast.solitairerose.com, where we go through the issues of the Fantastic Four, 4 issues at a time, to give the plot and commentary on each issue. That's not all. Yes, I'm crazy. I still, over at pwinsiderelite.com, every week on Wednesday, do a recap of the latest episode of AEW Dynamite. I write up what happened, and then myself and Anthony Pyrus we'll do an audio. Now, you can only listen to the audio, if you remember, at pwinsiderelite.com. And if you're a wrestling fan, you should be, where we then break down the episode, talk about what we liked, what we didn't like, give it a grade, and let you know if you should have watched that episode. Those are the other podcasts here at the Solitaire Rose Radio Network. Thanks. And now we get to the funniest part of all. Joe, what's going on the eBays?
Oh, all sorts of stuff. It's been kind of fun lately because for every 5 books I put on, I've been selling 2. And even today, oh man, I was just dragging my butt, and you'll find out why when we get to freaking. But I found a bunch of graphic novels that they must have been left over from Dana, and I've just been going through trying to decide, which ones are worth putting online, and some of them are out of print. So it's like, really, it's worth $50? Well, I'm putting that sucker up at 40, and maybe I'll buy it now. And other things I'll put up or I'll put aside because I just want to read it first. As terms of comics, I pulled, there's a couple that I put aside that I thought were kind of interesting. The first one, I don't know if you've ever read this at all, Cory. It's called Visions by R.G. Taylor. It's from Caliber in 1994, and it's just black and white art of R.G. Taylor. And I'm not sure if he was a guy who, he did Wordsmith, Silencers, Sandman Mystery Theater. So this was just an assortment of his favorite drawings and illustrations published for the first time. 96 pages and not terribly expensive, but just kind of interesting. You don't really see a lot of that being published anymore. Just, here's a comic book with just artwork in it. Some of the other things, and this is where if you're not careful, you can learn something. Cory, have you ever heard of Kemco? Kemco.
No.
Have you ever heard of Batman Dark Tomorrow?
Yes.
That is the company that made the game Batman Dark Tomorrow.
Oh, okay.
And if you didn't know it, there's a 2-issue series run that's tied into the comic book. And only one of them's hard to find. It's a Variation B, which was a promotional comic, has a white cover. My guess is it was probably given out in stores. But they have some that had barcodes on them, some that don't have barcodes at all. The ones without the barcode were packaged with the Killer Croc action figure. And then there's like an Oracle cover. And then, of course, issue 2 is just issue 2. There's nothing else. Usually the indica says like Kemco presents Batman Dark Tomorrow, and they were only distributed with the Batman Dark Tomorrow video game. So if you see them out in the wild, there might be something you want to pick up. Scott Peterson wrote it. Rick Burchett did the art. And again, if you didn't, just something that tied in. This is around 2002, so it's already 20 years old. Now, I know Cory's heard of Beetle Bailey.
Yes.
Let's see. Beetle Bailey, his first volume came out through Carlton, and it probably went, through Dell. And it probably went to Gold Key. It probably went to, that Carlton was some of the other ones, because the first appearances of Beetle Bailey were in the 4-color comics. Then at issue 5, that was his self-named comic. And they went through Dell, King, Carlton. There was apparently complimentary copies of issue number 33 in cooperation with the Cerebral Palsy Association. That brings us up to 1992, where Harvey decides, hey, let's try to see if anybody cares about our characters. And did they, Cory?
Not really, no.
No, not really. I mean, the Beetle Bailey Volume 2 went 9 issues over 2 years, 2 big covers, and a couple other ones. Not terribly expensive, but kind of hard to find because nobody really is collecting them and nobody cares. So I had a couple of them. Cory, have you heard of Torchy?
Yes, it was a character from the 40s and 50s by Bill Ward.
Yep. And Innovation did let's see. Well, it says 9 issues, but I see only 5 and then a 9 that has an Olivia cover on it, I guess. And then a couple books, a book that reprinted a few and then a summer special. Very hard to find anywhere. So if you can find them cheap, check them out. Let's see. Did we ever talk about Godzilla versus Barkley?
Yes.
Okay, so we don't have that. That's another one. How about Complete Love magazine?
No.
No, this is back in '51 by Ace Magazines. Now for this, I'm going to crack open my trusty Overstreet comic book price guide, because what happens is Complete Love magazine was formerly a pulp of the same title, and it went from a pulp into a comic book in 1951. Now, according to Overstreet, they have a number of volumes, like volume 26, number 2, number 3, volume 28, number 1. But if you go to Atomic Avenue, which is fun, because not only do you see the covers, but you see back in 51, they started out and they labeled it 158. Whether it was 158 or not, I don't recall, because they were always like June, May, and if you're lucky, they had the year. And they went through 191 into 1956 and then disappeared. It was, for the most part, Ace periodicals did it, and just photo covers, nobody really of note, and just books that people just beat on because they read them. How dare they read comics? Which is why, if you can find them, they're very, very pricey on the eBays. I tend not to go that route. I tend to find out what it is and price it cheap because I want to sell it. So if you're interested in those graphic novels I mentioned, I'll just take a peek at some of them. I got a Batman. Here's a Thor. These must be for my daughter. A lot of the Anita Blake comics, a Vampire Hunter.
Yes.
So they'll all be on the eBays, and you folks know what to do. 24/7 it's on. Just give me a quick note. You know, if you send me a note through the eBay system, say, hey, I listen to your podcast. I love it. I hate it. I don't know who that Cory is, but you should probably dump him and let him do his own Festivus podcast, and you just go on with your 70s retrospect.
Hey!
Never happens. You know what to do. Send me a note. I love to give our listeners a deal, and I've given a couple deals in the last couple of weeks. So if you see something you like, you know what to do. KRAYZ, come get some.
I've fallen down a rabbit hole, Joe.
Another one? I mean, oh.
Well, you know how we were talking about Grimtooth's traps?
Yeah.
I started thinking about the unlicensed D&D modules we used to buy. And I was like,
how do you spell that? Grimtooth?
Grimtooth.
Oh, Grimtooth, like it sounds.
Yep. And I was thinking, well, you know, I remember we ran out of the regular modules, and then there were ones that were published and they didn't have hardcovers. They were just kind of like a cheap magazine with paper covers. And I found the company that made them, Judges Guild.
Ah.
And I guess me no longer buying their stuff caused them to go out of business, because they went out of business in 1985.
Yeah, that'll do it. I'm just looking on the eBays. They all tend to be going around the $10 to $20 range.
Yeah, they're still, you can still buy them PDFs. I don't know if they're still in print.
Now,
and
these
they
look like actual books.
Yeah, and they put out a best of.
Yeah. So you can check some of it out if you really want to. I'm game to do it. Just sounds like it'd be fun reading.
It's my favorite part of the show. No, not where Joe and I prepare to play Dungeons and Dragons, roll up characters that Dan Moore comes onto the show and kills off in the first adventure.
I thought it was where we eat a box of Milk Duds and try to whistle afterwards.
I don't like Milk Duds.
Oh, I love Milk. I only like
Milk Duds. They say they're caramel. They're not.
I like them just because I can suck on them and I don't feel like I'm, shooting my blood sugar through the roof with pure sugar. But
they say they're caramel. They're not caramel. They're rocks. They're chocolate-covered rocks.
Corn syrup, sugar, vegetable oil, dextrose, skim milk, reduced protein whey, chocolate, and 2% less of brown sugar, mono, and diglycerides, whey, baking soda, salt, confectioner's glaze, tapioca dextrin, vanilla, and artificial flavor. Which could be what caramel's made of. I don't know.
Caramel's actually sugar and milk. No, it's Freaking a Geeky Joe. What are you freaking on?
I had a book canceled on me. And
that happens all the time now.
I know, it's just getting annoying. But this one, what pisses me off is it was one of those that I was recommending. And let me just find it here. What's the furthest place? You know how one's coming with a record album? They canceled my record albums. Allocated. I don't get one. So I guess I won't be talking about that anymore. I'm not talking Transformers, but Omicron has visited the Kray household. Yeah, unfortunately, one of the kids got Omicron. So why I've been so out of it today, and I've been kind of rambling in my normally sharp eBay presentations because I got up way early in the morning to go out to one of the health places and have them stick the even my nose is running just thinking about it. Stick that swab way up the nose. I had the 2 tests done where they do the one where they just do the inside of the nose, but the Omicron variant exists farther back in your cranium, so they had to do another one. Yeah, they have to
go into your they have to go to your brain.
It's kind of like they poke and my leg went against this. Okay, do it again. The weird thing is you drive up, some guy gets your name, they go in. You never get out of the car. You got to have a mask on. They pull your thing on just long enough to stick it up your nose. So I haven't got my results back. Well, I got the rapid test results, which come back in like 3 hours. And so far, no. But the more accurate test takes a couple days. So I'm still kind of on edge. I feel bad because the kids had to cancel a trip out to Los Angeles to go visit I guess some of his parents. But you know what you're going to do. I'm knocking on wood because, you know, of course, in 49 days out of this here podcast, I'm hoping to go to Hawaii. And in some ways, I wish I'd get the damn thing because I'm vaccinated. And if I get it, even though I'm high risk, it's still not as bad. And I keep reading articles saying that it's peaking, that the curve it's fast, it spreads fast, but it also gets out of you and disappears fast. And so far, no signs of other variants. I mean, yeah, there's rumblings here and there, but no signs like Omicron's coming back. So I got censored on Facebook. I know you're shocked. And it's just,
I'm surprised it hasn't happened before.
Yeah, I'm pretty loose and fast. But then again, over the past couple of years, anybody who's real tired of my tirades has pretty much disfriended me. There's been times where, you know, you get your Facebook memories and you go through and you're like, oh, look. You look at all the comments and you're like, you just click over to run your arrow over the guy's name and you're like, oh, look, they defriended me. That's why I've never heard from them again. So, but no, what it was is I was on a Bloom County site, and I've lost track of which one it was, and I'll tell you why, where people are just putting out their favorite Bloom County strips. They're copying them, putting them online, and just having fun with them. And I started rereading Bloom County. I thought I'd read from the beginning. And one of the things I love is just sometimes those comic panels are just amazing out of context. If you go to my Facebook page, and if you do, you can always send me a friend request. Just tell me you're with your podcast. I'd love to have you. And then I can annoy you and you can defriend me in like a month. You'll just see 2 eyeballs. That's the thing from Binkley's closet. And what had happened is he had jumped out and said something to Binkley, and he's like, I'm no longer scared of that. And so he kind of looks out at you. And I said, that's just a funny image. And of course, my favorite is the dog who's just staring out. Tomorrow I get to poop again. So I just started taking panels. The first one I put up was an early Steve Dallas slapping the dog. I forget I think the dog's name was Rabies. He was a holdover from Breathitt's college strip, I think Academy Waltz, and he eventually faded out. And the whole strip basically is Steve wakes up and he slaps the dog. He's like, how can you sleep there knowing that there's communists in the French government? I'm like, that's just silly. So I posted that in and of itself. and people, they liked it. I mean, they were like, "Oh, this is funny," you know. And a lot of them didn't know who it was or what the context was. But I thought, you know what, people are going to post their strip. This will be my kind of thing. I'll just get the individual and put the individual strips up and go from there. So as I was going through, the next one I put up, there's a strip. It's Saturday. It's I think Friday night TV in Bloom County, and there's one where, if you know how Breatha draws older, overweight, old women, you know what I'm talking about. You know, she's sitting back, you know, gut over her breast line, and you know, big neck, curl her hairs, knobby knees, and she's watching TV, and the TV goes, "And put some life into that drab marriage, ladies. Tomorrow afternoon, greet your husband at the door wearing nothing but a smile and a bottle of champagne. Boy, won't he be surprised." So I posted that because that one's always cracked me up. I mean, yeah, you get the juxtaposition. Hopefully you're not, you know, solely intolerant. But oh my gosh, the misogynistic comments that came down. It's like, people, you're missing the point here. And it got removed. And I thought, okay, well said. It probably should have been removed. So then I posted the next one from that, where a mangy dog staring at the screen. Yes, you are a sinner. Don't deny it. And the dog's thinking, okay. Then I get a nasty note where my admin teams remove your post, and if you post again, you'll be removed from the site. Well, Cory can understand how well I get along with that type of bullshit. I took a zap of the page that he removed it, and I posted, and I said, you know what? Only on a Bloom County page can you be threatened with being removed from the site for posting a Bloom County panel. Goodbye. And then the next panel, I posted the entire strip. I said, this is what I got booted for. Goodbye. And I sent a note to the admin saying, you know, this is ridiculous. I'm getting booted off your site because I posted a Bloom County strip. The response? Oh, well, this is a new admin that wasn't familiar with early Bloom County. And I'm like, whatever. I just say, okay, no worries, no harm, no foul. I erased everything. I left. I didn't say anything else. I mean, I was basically, my other conniption was basically, come on, kick me off the site for posting Bloom County. I dare you. And then I realized, oh, it was just misunderstanding. But it totally kind of took away any fun. I just don't care. And there's other Bloom County sites, and there's also, well, if I've got the books, but it's like, I don't need this type of bullshit. So I do what I do with most of my Facebook, whether it's a political ad or I get on a Star Wars site and I listen to everybody tell me how bad the Book of Boba Fett is. Rather than get into it and tell them how wrong they are, I just close the page and move on. But it still pissed me off. And that's what the fun thing of having a podcast. Anything that pisses me off, I can put it in freaking. I think that's enough for me. Cory, what are you freaking on?
Got a few things.
Good. I'm going to put myself on mute and blow my nose.
Last week was a record that Joe probably doesn't even know of. That's right. Last week, every single comic that DC put out was a Batman book. Every single comic.
Excuse me, I just blew my Kleenex across the room.
So let's face it, if you listened to us, about 2 years ago when we said that AT&T, when they came in, were like, why are you publishing anything other than Batman? Well, looks like DC's been told by AT&T, publish more Batman.
I like a Batman.
Also, they've announced with issue 75 of the Justice League, they're going to kill the Justice League. And they say it's kind of a 30th anniversary of Death of Superman thing, and it'll be in the next previews. And of course, everybody has lost their mind.
You know, in some ways, I love that I'm not paying attention to this stuff because in my book I have stop JLA at 75. Stick around for the chaos.
Everybody else is stopping at 75 too, Joe.
Oh yeah.
But when they announce this stuff, it's a story. By the end of the story, everybody will be back. But even people who've worked in the comic industry are like, I'm disgusted by this. Why? It's like they killed Superman.
What?
And when they killed Superman,
I didn't even know he was sick.
And when they killed Superman, the story behind the death of Superman always makes me laugh now, because they even talk about it on Slugfest. When they get the Superman team together to plot out, all right, what are the stories we're doing for the next year? Jerry Ordway every year would say the same thing. Why don't we kill him? Well, they were going to have him get married in issue 75, but the people of Warner Brothers said, no, we want you to tie it in with the Lois and Clark TV show, which I've watched some episodes of Lois and Clark, and oh my God, was it terrible. So they were like, okay, who's got an idea? Jerry Ordway, of course. Why don't we kill him? And everybody goes, okay. So I imagine the same thing with the Justice League. They're like, okay, Bendis is leaving. What should we do with the Justice League? Why don't we kill him? Okay. Joe has talked about it a bit in the past. I haven't been hit by it as much, but I keep reading about shops getting allocated. What that means is they've ordered a certain number of books, and because of shipping issues or other things, those books are allocated, which means if you ordered 100, let's say you order 100 of something and they allocate, they say you're only going to get 80% of your order. You ordered 100, you're only getting 80. Now, there are two reasons why this is bad. One, it's bad because you're pre-ordering this stuff. You should be able to get what you pre-ordered. And it means that if you pre-sold any of those books, too bad, so sad, somebody's not going to get their books. And second is, as we've talked over and over and over and over till I hope everybody who listens to this show knows it. When a shop orders a certain number of things, they expect to make that money. That's how they set their budget. I'm going to order 100 X-Men. I'm going to get a profit of $200. That $200 is going to pay for my heat and electricity. Oh, you're only going to be getting 80% of your order. So rather than $200, you're only going to get $160. You can't go to the heat and electricity company and go, well, they allocated my order. Can you cut my heat and electricity by 20%? They'll stare at you blindly and go, $200. I want my $2. So allocations are a terrible thing up and down the chain. We haven't heard a lot of reasons why, but I do know that one of the reasons why when you order an omnibus, they say it'll be here in 6 to 8 months, is because it's printed in China. And when they print books in China, they don't put them in, airmail. They use them as ballast in boats. So if the boats are sitting off Los Angeles waiting for their turn to dock, your comics are sitting off Los Angeles waiting for their turn to dock. The last thing I am freaking on, I messaged my lovely daughter-in-law because my son is not on Facebook, and when I text him, he might get back to me maybe in 2 to 3 weeks. But I asked, how were the things that you got for Christmas? She went, we didn't get anything from you for Christmas. So I look, and Amazon had sent them to their old address. So I let them know. And my son actually said, he sent me an email with, yeah, we haven't got him yet because the guy who lives at our address works at the bar. So he said we could pick it up at the bar, but every time I go to the bar that he works at, he's not there. And since most of what I got him were snacks, I imagine that they were eaten at the bar. So So I did have to tell Amazon, hey, you delivered this to the wrong address. The person who signed for it is not the person they should have went to, blah, blah, blah. So they got their Christmas presents last week.
You could have sent them to me first. I'd have eaten them.
Yeah, I know. That's why I didn't send them to you first.
Oh.
Joe, what are you geeking on?
Oh, all sorts of things. I've been reading a lot, as Cory knows, because as I've been reading things, I've been sending him panels via text that are making me snort out loud. I'm not going to talk a lot about it because I think next week we're going to do one of our Vaunted View episodes. Review, I'm sorry. Sorry, I got images of sitting at a table with Whoopi Goldberg and 3 other women. Anyways, yeah, I've just been having a lot of fun with these series. So it's been a blast. And we'll talk about some of the titles, top 10, both the original and the one afterwards. Chew, the latest Dreaming book, Irredeemable, just a blast reading comics. And that, as much as I love the individual comics, I do find it may be just a sign of age, but I'm really getting into just having the graphic novel ready to go. It doesn't mean I don't mind buying things. As I mentioned before at top of the show, I have gone to 3 different comic stores and dropped $300, and not all of it's been graphic novels. Some of it's actually been on comics. So speaking of which, I got this comic behind me we've talked about in the past, OG Wiz.
Oh yeah.
That ain't never going to be out in a graphic novel. So, again, I'll buy individual issues. But as far as newer stuff, I haven't made the digital jump. I'm real close to, though, because I really want to read this stuff. That's one thing I miss about a comic shop, is being able to read everything and at least know what the heck is going on. But then again, I'm sitting around me and there's a stack of about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, about 25 graphic novels I've yet to read. So, yeah, maybe I should just stop buying things and just catch up with what I got.
Nah.
I knew I couldn't say that with a straight face. I was just supposed to check and see if my wife was around the corner. Anyways, 49 Days to Hawaii. Did I mention that? Yeah, I think I did. Love and Boba Fett, the TV show. I just watched the last one last night. Are you watching this one, Cory, or are you on wait mode?
I am on I haven't had time to watch anything mode.
Oh,
I actually had to tap out on wrestling last night because I told the guys, look, I need a night away. I haven't had a day where I've not been at work for about 2 weeks now. And on weekdays, it's get up. Oh my gosh, they were shorthanded. Mandatory overtime, you have to log in at 7. I'm done at 5. I go to the group home. This almost sounds like a freaking, but it's not. But the 2 new staff at the group home, they're both really nice people, Joe. They are. They're great with the clients. But when I come in, it's a friggin' madhouse. The kitchen is a nightmare. No one's eaten yet. No one's been changed in a few hours. And it takes me an hour to come in and kind of tamp down the chaos. Get everybody in their pajamas. Get everybody changed. Make sure they've eaten. Start their meds. So by 8:30, everybody's finally in bed, and I just kind of sit down and go, oh crap, now I need to log everything. So I get home around 10:30 and collapse, get up and go again. And yesterday my voice was shot, my brain was shot, and I just said, guys, I need to tap out on covering wrestling tonight because I haven't had any time to myself for 2 weeks. You know what I did last night? I read a crappy men's adventure novel with soundscapes playing, that calm new agey music. And I just did that all night. It was glorious. So no, I've not seen Boba Fett.
Oh, well then you definitely haven't seen Peacemaker, because I watched the first episode of that, and I hadn't seen Suicide Squad. It's on, I guess.
Oh, you got to see
Max.
Suicide Squad.
Yeah, I do want to see it. And I got to say, I'm enjoying. I mean, I watch Peacemaker mostly because I'm really curious to see how John Cena works. And he's kicking it out of the ballpark. I've really enjoyed it. I mean, he's made it as goofy as Peacemaker is, and he's probably the most sympathetic guy on the frickin' show. And you really want to see him win, and you know damn well that ain't going to happen. The only other thing that got me my geek on was hearing Daniel Radcliffe being in a Weird Al, or being Weird Al in a Weird Al movie coming up. So I know what
I think they need to do right after that, though? Weird Al needs to do a movie about Daniel Radcliffe.
Or be in a short Harry Potter movie.
Just, Daniel Radcliffe in a Weird Al movie, Weird Al in a Daniel Radcliffe movie.
It could be
put them out at the same time.
Yeah, you never know. Weird Al's been known to do stuff like that. So, but no, that was kind of fun news. So, like I said, most of the fun I've had has just been reading and taking snapshots of goofy panels in what I've been reading. And if you're on my Facebook page, you'll see them pop up here and there. The one that made me spit out. Let's see if I can find it here. Oh yeah, Facebook. Let's cooperate while you're here. Where'd you hide my photos? Right under photos. Go to my album. So I'm reading Chew, and one of the things that cracks me up beyond belief is, I haven't posted it yet. Good. Well, I'll shut up about it. But the one that got me was a little tiny van in top 10 behind Exterminator Services Limited, Radioactive Spiders, Career-Defining Bats, Call Your Ultra Pest Problems. It's just brilliant, and I just love stuff like that. So anyways, I will get the other stuff up. So if you see it, you know it's probably from Chew. Cory, what you geeking on?
A few things. I am now halfway through the Immortal Hulk. I thought that they would be building up to the one below all. Nope, boom. That's right in the third story arc. It's like, whoa, you guys aren't slowing down, are you? Everything I thought I thought the story would take longer, but it is barreling through fast and going places I never thought it would go. And I absolutely love that so much. I love it when a book surprises me. I love it when all the people who, comics take forever to tell a story. No, you just need to realize that you need to keep up. There are many different ways to tell a story. There are times when you want to slow that story down. You want to, like Quentin Tarantino it, where you stretch out everything. Or like Hitchcock did. You're going to create that suspense. Hitchcock always said there are two ways to have a bomb blow up. First, you show two people talking in a room, and a bomb under the table explodes. You get a momentary shock. But if you instead take the camera, show the bomb, show that the bomb is going to go off in 5 minutes, then pull back and have two people talking at the table, the audience is going to lose their minds for 5 minutes. A lot of comic storytelling does that same thing. You think you know where it's going, they're building it up, and then it's like a car comes out of nowhere and knocks the story 90 degrees in a different direction. I almost think that a lot of people who complain about current comic storytelling just aren't used to storytelling. They're used to a certain style, and anything outside of that style they can't handle. Immortal Hulk is a wonderful example of tight storytelling, great plotting, and just all these wonderful ideas just being thrown into this stew. And at each turn, it's one of those, I didn't expect that, but it makes perfect sense. We are getting a nostalgia fest from Marvel, by the way. We've got the Maestro series by Peter David, who did Hulk through the 80s and 90s. We now have a Ben Reilly Spider-Man miniseries set right after Peter Parker and Mary Jane moved to Seattle by J.M. DeMatteis. We have a Silver Surfer series, kind of, I can't really quite grasp where it is yet, but it's certainly in the 90s because Genis is in it. by Ron Mars and Ron Lim. By the way, Ron Lim's art's still fantastic. We're getting this wonderful dose of nostalgia also with X-Men Legends. But the good thing about it is it's not, hey, we're going to have Ron Mars take over Silver Surfer and make it like the 90s again. No, it's here's a miniseries, kind of here's a little nostalgia pop. Or, J.M. DeMatteis, we're not having him take over Spider-Man, but we're going to give you this miniseries, a little nostalgia pop. Or Peter David, we're going to have him do this Maestro thing, little nostalgia pop. And I like that. I like the fact that they're allowing these older creators to come in, do a story that's going to be in a nice trade paperback. Hopefully they do well enough that we'll get more of that. And then the last thing I'm geeking on, we announced it last week. I'm about to sneeze. So we announced last week that John Romita Jr. is back on Spider-Man. They're showing art all over the place, and there's an energy and a vibrance to it that there wasn't there on the DC stuff. I think, it was good for him to go to DC, kind of recharge his batteries, play with new characters, because he'd been at Marvel for, 35 years? Want to feel old, Joe?
Again?
Yeah. John Romita Jr.'s been drawing comics since 1980. 40 years. 42 years. John Romita Jr. But his stuff on Spidey looks really cool. I'm really excited about it. They're doing a really good job of hyping it. Believe it or not, kids, you've listened to us blather on about funny books, and pretty much mostly funny books, for an hour and a half.
Rarely happens. So, Peg, mark this one down as a good one, other than the brief foray into milk dud ingredients
and role-playing games.
Yeah.
Although maybe we should do an episode sometime of our time in role-playing games. Now, you just played Dungeons and Dragons, right?
Kind of a hybrid of it, yeah. I mean, I played in somebody else's dungeon, and then my version when I was the dungeon master was kind of a more GURPS orientated.
Now, we did Dungeons & Dragons, but as new games came out, we'd try them. We did the James Bond game. We tried Traveler twice, and it was boring as hell. And when I go back and I read the original rules, it's really set up like Space Truckers, and the rules just don't give you enough for a solid science fiction background. It's like, here are some rules, rather than here's some rules and here's a framework to use them in. Like Dungeons & Dragons gave you the rules and then a framework. We played James Bond 007, gave you the rules and a framework. But the one we played the most after 82, Villains and Vigilantes, superhero role-playing.
Oh, yeah, I remember that one.
Oh, my God, did we play that. There were times where we would play that 10 hours. Like, it's okay, Sunday. What are we going to do? We're going to play Villains and Vigilantes. How long? Well, I get up around, let's get together at noon and we'll play till we're ready to go to bed. When are we going to bed? I got to get back to my dorm room around 10 or 11 so I can wake up for my 8 o'clock class. By the way, I'm going to give advice to every college professor in college in the world. Joe, did you have any 8 o'clock classes?
Usually not, because I was DJing in the morning, but occasionally I would.
Do you remember anything from your 8 a.m. classes?
The only one I recall taking specifically was college algebra, and that was just to fill a requirement. I don't remember any of my algebra.
I don't remember anything from any of my 8 a.m. classes. No one remembers anything from their 8 a.m. classes. Quit having classes at 8 a.m. Just stop. No one remembers. No one learns anything. They're just there. They're drinking their coffee. They're writing notes, and they're praying they don't screw up on the final. And as we say every week, the comic we like the least, we still like better than the comic that you like the most. Joe?
Since we have talked, it has gone to 2 below zero. Feels like 11 outside because we have a wind chill advisory going on in Minnesota, which makes me wonder, how did the vampire bite his prey in the cold weather? Well, with the help of frostbite. Hit my music.